What if I told you that one of the most important journeys in human history began with a single command? No map, no destination revealed, no detailed plan, only a promise, and one man's decision to trust me. Most people know Abraham as the father of faith, but very few understand how his journey truly began. Because before Abraham became the father of nations, before kings descended from his lineage, before promises were fulfilled, he was simply a man being asked to leave everything familiar behind. And by the end of the story, you will discover why his first step of faith changed the destiny of the world forever. The story begins with a command. I spoke to Abram and said, "Leave your country, leave your relatives, leave your father's household. Go to a land that I will show you." Pause and think about that. I did not hand Abram a map. I did not explain every detail. I did not reveal every step along the journey. I simply called him to trust me. And this is often how faith begins. People want certainty before obedience. They want answers before action. They want guarantees before commitment. But faith often requires movement before understanding. Abram was 75 years old when I called him. Most people would have believed their greatest adventures were behind them. Yet Abram's true story was only beginning. Sometimes the greatest calling comes when people least expect it. I made extraordinary promises to him. I promised to make him into a great nation. I promised to bless him. I promised to make his name great. And through him, all families of the earth would be blessed. Imagine hearing those words. A man with no child, a man with no nation, a man with no kingdom, yet receiving a promise that would impact the entire world. From a human perspective, it seemed impossible, but my promises are not limited by human circumstances. Abram believed, and because he believed, he departed. He took Sarai, his wife, Lot, his nephew, their possessions, their servants, and began the journey toward Canaan. Imagine leaving everything familiar behind, the places you know, the people you love, the security you depend upon. Stepping into uncertainty requires courage, but Abram chose faith over comfort, and that decision would define his life. When Abram arrived in the land of Canaan, I appeared to him again. I told him that this land would one day belong to his descendants. At that moment, the promise was still unseen. The descendants did not yet exist. The inheritance had not yet been received. Yet Abram responded in a remarkable way. He built an altar. Notice what he did not do. He did not demand proof. He did not question the promise. He worshipped. Throughout Abram's journey, altars became markers of faith, places where he remembered my presence, places where he acknowledged my faithfulness, places where trust overcame uncertainty. This is a lesson many people need today. When facing the unknown, worship often becomes an act of faith. Abram continued his journey, building altars, calling upon my name, moving forward one step at a time. But then, something unexpected happened. A famine struck the land. The very land I had promised suddenly became a place of hardship. Think about how confusing that must have been. Had I not called him there? Had I not promised blessing? Why then did difficulty appear? This is an important truth. Following me does not mean life becomes free from challenges. Faith is not the absence of difficulty. faith is trusting me through difficulty. The famine became Abram's first major test. Seeking survival, he traveled into Egypt, and there another challenge emerged: fear. Abram looked at Sarai and saw her beauty. He feared that powerful men might kill him in order to take her. So he devised a plan. "Tell them you are my sister." Abram believed this would protect him. But fear often causes people to make decisions they would not otherwise make. Even great men of faith have moments of weakness. Even faithful people sometimes struggle with fear. This chapter reminds us that heroes of Scripture were not flawless. They were human. Abram entered Egypt, and exactly as he feared, Sarai's beauty attracted attention. Pharaoh's officials noticed her. Soon she was taken into Pharaoh's household. Abram's plan appeared to be working, at least for a moment, but hidden beneath that apparent success was a serious problem. Fear had led Abram away from complete trust, and whenever people attempt to solve problems without trusting me fully, complications often follow. Then I intervened. Great plagues came upon Pharaoh's household because of Sarai. Pharaoh quickly realized something was wrong. The truth emerged. Sarai was not merely Abram's sister, she was his wife. Imagine Pharaoh's frustration. He had been deceived. He confronted Abram. "Why did you not tell me the truth? Why did you say she was your sister?" The king's questions exposed Abram's mistake. Fear had led him into compromise, yet notice something remarkable. Despite Abram's failure, my promise remained. Despite his weakness, I did not abandon him. Despite his mistake, my plan continued. This is one of the most encouraging truths found throughout Scripture. Human failure does not automatically cancel divine purpose. Abram made mistakes. He stumbled. He allowed fear to influence his decisions. Yet my grace remained at work. Pharaoh sent Abram away, along with Sarai, along with all his possessions. The chapter ends with Abram leaving Egypt, the promise still intact, the journey still continuing, the calling still alive. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of Genesis chapter 12. Faith does not mean perfection. Faith means continuing to trust me even when you stumble. Abram's story is not remarkable because he never failed. It is remarkable because he continued walking forward. He continued believing. He continued trusting. And through that faith, a promise began unfolding that would eventually bless the entire world. A promise that would lead to kings, prophets, nations, and ultimately to me. If this story has deepened your understanding of Scripture, subscribe to Primordial Lore and continue exploring the greatest stories ever told. And now, continue to the next chapter, where wealth, conflict, and a difficult choice force Abram and Lot to separate, revealing another powerful lesson about trust and obedience.